How big does America's annual budget deficit have to get before you begin to question the solvency of the government? How much total debt can the economy hold before you begin to question whether or not it can be repaid? How high does the price of gold and silver have to go before you realize that something is already happening? How many new rules and restrictions on trade and capital and finance will have to be implemented before you finally realize that you're screwed?
Yeah, savers tend to just stick their money in an account and wait for something to happen, and then they can incrementally be fleeced. Well, I've got all these mainstream news articles, Porter, and I've been pointing this out for years. Now even Glenn Beck is doing it, did it last week. The military now admits they're preparing to suppress uprisings, and they have role players that scream, I'm an American, no, not the camp. They're already practicing taking over farms and nationalizing them. They're already acclimating everyone, and suddenly there's like checkpoints with cops and weird RVs with American flags flying, with cops with cameras. They're putting telescreens in 9,000 retail stores with Homeland Security saying, watch your neighbor. And I have the Homeland Security press release right here. It's like they're trying to recreate the fictional 1984. So clearly the government knows what it's done, and so there's no doubt. I mean, there's literally, they're just acclimating us to a soft form of martial law with troops and paramilitary just scurrying around everywhere, getting ready. And I guess the troops and military have been brainwashed. They're going to go along with the total takedown of the republic from first world to third world.
Well, I think that you said it all when you first said the words Homeland Security. I mean, since when was America an empire that needed Homeland Security? I mean, where are we living? And these processes have gone on for a long time. The country's been going this way for a very, very long time. And I can't tell you about the social aspects of it, and I'm not really an expert in regards to the political aspects of it, but I am very, very confident that my analysis in regards to the economics of it is right. You can make all the laws and pass all the things that you want on these people, and you can fool them with advertising and get them to vote for almost anything. I mean, people are completely sheep. But you can't pay for it, because socialism will bankrupt you.
Yes.
That's just a fact of life.
Well, that's what Ron Paul has said, is that they're going to take over. We're going to have a police state, but it's going to bankrupt like the Soviet Union. But now, in this high-tech age, everything is accelerated. And so it won't take 50 years for the American empire, the American Soviet, to fall. It'll take 3-4 years. Do you agree with that?
Well, we are already so far in debt. It's unbelievable. I mean, most Americans don't really understand what these numbers mean. But, you know, our budget deficits are completely, totally out of control and unsustainable, and they're having a massive impact already on the value of our currency. And there is no consensus on either Republicans or the Democratic sides to merely pay for our existing government. Forget about beginning to pay for the largest debts ever accumulated in the history of mankind. So this is not going to last very long. I can assure you of that.
So you're talking about total implosion this next year.
Alex, as I would say to you, we're already in total implosion.
No, I agree with you, but I mean, when trains stop running on time, when gas doesn't come out into your stove, I mean, that's what they've done in every other country that they've fleeced like this. They suck it dry like a vampire, sucks a fat lady down and just to a pile of ash. Specifically,
look, Alex, what's the difference between a commodity that's not available and a commodity that's not affordable? You're telling me that the American people's standard of living hasn't dropped precipitously in the last 2 years?
No, I mean, the word is accelerate. It's going to hell in a handbasket.
Right. I mean, so every single day you're getting poorer, but they're doing it in a way that is simply diabolical. Instead of honestly defaulting and making companies restructure, which would certainly lead to a lot of short-term, very painful problems, they're doing it in a way where everyone seems to think everything's fine, but meanwhile, the entire foundation of our society is being pulled out from underneath us. And you're going to wake up in 6 months' time, and you're going to go, what the heck, I'm 50% poorer, but my salary is larger.
Unbelievable. And this is the formula. This is the formula that they have used over and over again. But there does come a time when the world really completely dumps the dollar, and then we do see times where there are new, quote, crises. What type of crises do you see mixed into the stew?
Well, look, like I said, this is long. This has already begun. Last year, 2009, was the first year since 1971 that central banks were a net buyer of gold. Our trading partners are already abandoning the dollar. They are fleeing into gold. There's no doubt about it. Chinese are selling treasury bonds. It's going to continue for a very, very long time. So the next big thing I would look for is to see either Brazil or China make a very large acquisition of gold, probably from the IMF. So that's the one thing you're going to see. The next thing you're going to see is you're going to see more and more U.S. underwriting of big bailouts in Europe. We just got finished with the Irish bailout, the Spanish bailout, and the Italian bailout is next, and it's going to be even bigger. So you're going to see the Fed underwrite $2-3 trillion in bailouts for Europe this year. Pretty soon, people are going to start asking, wait a minute, where's all that money coming from? How could the Americans be paying to bail out the Europeans when the Americans are even more broke than the Europeans?
And so we're going to be the last domino to fall, or there's no telling, it's Russian roulette?
No, I'm saying something different. I'm saying that the dominoes are already falling. They're falling in a way that's designed for most people not to notice.
No, I agree. As the G20 said last year, it's coordinated devaluation. But I mean, I know the dominoes have fallen over and over again, but it's like dominoes going down a staircase. We're going deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, here's a better way to say it. When do we hit rock bottom?
We hit rock bottom when the U.S. Treasury cannot conduct an auction, when there are no buyers for Treasury bonds. And believe me, no one believes that's going to happen, but it'll absolutely positively happen, and it's going to happen a lot sooner than anybody expects.
Well, the Fed's already been having to start to expand its monetization and buy Treasuries.
That's right. They're the people who are buying all the supply.
Unbelievable. Porter Stansberry is our guest. We're going to come back and get into that. And then also tell you how to hopefully protect yourself. They got a lot of key information that I agree with at endofamerica3.com. Endofamerica3.com. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. All right, we're going into overdrive into the fourth hour. We've got open phones specifically for our guest, Porter Stansberry. The website is endofamerica3.com. Free video up there, extremely powerful information. Endofamerica3.com. You can go watch the video streaming online at endofamerica3.com. Of course, our websites are Infowars.com and prisonplanet.tv. We've got more huge guests, including former Minnesota governor with bombshell info coming up Friday, but other surprise guests coming up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday here. And, of course, coming back next week, I'm taking a few days off, but Paul Watson will be here live with folks just a whole bunch of special guests with Watson, Paul Watson, next week live here as well. Finishing up with hitting rock bottom and why you have the term end of America. I mean, when you say end of America, what do you mean by that?
Well, I want to be clear about that. What I mean by end of America is America losing the special position it has had globally since World War II of having the world's reserve currency. It's an enormous advantage to us. It's enabled us, actually, unfortunately, to build these enormous debts. There's no way creditors would have allowed us to do that if we couldn't print the world's reserve currency to service those debts. So we're the only nation in the world that can buy anything around the world in our own currency. Everybody else has to buy dollars before they can buy oil, or buy dollars before they can buy corn, or buy dollars before they can buy a company in another country or real estate or whatever.
So we pay $80 for a barrel of crude, and the Germans pay $200.
Well, the Germans have to buy dollars before they can buy crude from a foreign source, and that means their government has a vested interest in making sure their currency remains sound. Otherwise, the people are going to notice. Our country's politicians have the great luxury of having the world's reserve currency, and that means that they can run enormous fiscal and current account deficits for years and years and years and years without any repercussion. And of course, that's what they've done. So now we're stuck with this big dilemma where all the consequences of our bad economic behavior for the last 30 years are going to come to a crisis instead of being something that we noticed along the way.
Well, it is moving quicker and quicker. So when do we hit bottom? I mean, obviously, I agree with you. The dollar devaluation is on. The dominoes are falling now, and many have already fallen. But when we hit bottom and instead of only 20% or so of the Treasury's not being bought at auction, when 90% aren't being bought, what does that do? Just hyperinflation? I mean, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, this, again, I know this sounds sort of implausible, but I would just beg you to look at the numbers. Total domestic U.S. savings are around $600 billion right now, okay? Annual federal deficit is $1.2 billion. What's the difference between how much we can save and how much our government is spending? The difference is $600 billion. So let me ask you, Alex, guess how much money the Federal Reserve just agreed to print over the next 6 months? Take a wild guess. It's $600 billion. You know, give the Cracker Jack Award to Alex. So we're already at the point where the Federal Reserve is literally printing all the money that we need to maintain our annual fiscal deficits. That is absolutely positively banana republic finance, and it has enormous consequences for our country going forward. And there is no one in the mainstream media at all who is giving an adequate warning about what this really means.
And all the really rich people I know are leaving the United States. They're now, in fact, well, I'm not going to get into it, but, I mean, they're leaving this year because they know the new rules are going in where you can't get your money out. So roaches get in, the roaches don't get out. I mean, this is really authoritarian. I believe politically we're going to be able to beat it with Ron Paul and Rand Paul and others, but it's going to be a hard road. I know there's nowhere to run long term, so we're choosing to go down with the SS Titanic. If you want to call us in the next hour and have questions specifically for our guests, Porter Stansberry of endofamerica3.com, 1-800-259-9231. 1-800-259-9231. Specific short questions or comments for our guests. Open phones right now. We're going into overdrive. Stay with us. Porter Stansberry is our guest. endofamerica3.com is the URL to see their free hour-long video that I have to unfortunately concur with. I wish this wasn't true. We're going into a very serious storm. They've told us we're out of the storm, that the recession's over. Porter, from your deep financial research, do you agree that with me that according to any economic indicator, we're really in a depression already?